All right, so welcome everyone to our YouTube conversation. Very excited and grateful to have this talk today. The talk today is about what is our true self. I'm very excited about it, and just been reflecting on the question, as I was coming into this conversation today, and looking forward to having that dialogue with those who are going to participate in this conversation, so that we can really start to uncover and remove some of those obscurations that hinder and obstruct us from achieving whatever it is that's important to us. Each and every one of us have dreams, we have goals, we have aspirations that we're trying to achieve. And oftentimes what is interfering with it is not having clarity about how life really works, how life functions. And when we get that clarity and we become clearer and clearer as to how life works, it's easier for us to navigate our way and achieve the things that are important to us. It's easier for us to be able to release our gifts, our talents, our capacities, our strengths, our God-given powers that are latent within us. They start to give birth whenever we start to remove those obscurations and obstructions in our mind that are interfering with them releasing or higher gifts and talents releasing themselves. So this conversation is dedicated to that. And, we're in the early phases of this. This is something that we're going to continue to do over the course of time. I started some years ago when I was in Nigeria having this physically, and then I had a couple of conferences while I was there. But now we're doing this virtual platform, and we're going to continue to develop and spread this. I know some of my friends who have started to come in back into this conversation that we had back in Nigeria. Some of them have started to come back in. So you'll be hearing from different people from time to time. So welcome. Thank you for listening. All right, so let's dive into the question and ask the question. And I love for each individual to chime in and give me your answer. What do you believe? What is the true self? All right, that's the question. You could unmute. If you want to turn on your camera, you can. If you don't want to turn on your camera, that's fine. Well, go ahead and unmute and answer from me. What is the true self? Just give me your perspective on that. What is the true self? Go ahead. Let me start. I'm going to pick a name if somebody doesn't jump in, but I'll start with you, Robert. All right. What is the true self? Could you unmute and share? What is the true self? I'm waiting to hear from you, Robert. All right, let's go to Cindy. Robert is thinking about. Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Sometimes it takes a little time to get back on to where you can open up, you can unmute yourself. Sometimes when people don't answer, they're trying to remute. They're trying to get it back to where they unmuted. Okay, so now are you saying what is your true self?
Yeah, what do you consider that to be?
Your true self, your true self is the way that God made us, and he made us all true, and so our true self is the God that's in us, the God that lives and dwells in us is our true self.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that perspective on what the true self is. Cindy, do you want to jump in and share what do you believe the true self is? Your line is muted. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, morning. This is Cindy from Jamaica. Well, I would say the true self is exactly what it says. The true self, you're not pretending, you're not trying to be someone you're not, you're just being you.
All right, thank you for that. That's another way of looking at it. Thank you for that. You're just being you. You're not trying to pretend to be someone else. You're just being you. All right. Okay, that's a very, very interesting perspective. All right, let's go to Annette. Annette, I'm gonna call you today. All right, wanted to give me your perspective. What do you believe the true self is?
Good morning. My true self is me. who I am, God created me to be. That is my true self.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Great to hear that. The way that's your true self. Me. All right. Go ahead, Marlene, if you'd be so kind, and unmute. What do you consider what is the true self?
Good morning, Dr. Benjamin. You put me on the spot there. I wasn't actually prepared to speak this morning. So I'm kindly asking to be excused to the place.
That's fine. That's fine. And I appreciate that. You can always, you don't have to participate. There's no forced participation. All right. Okay, Mark, what do you consider the true self? What is the true self? Some people said it's me. It's just me being who I want to be. Your line is muted, Mark.
One true self, I would want to probably allude to the opinion. It's about the things that I do naturally, the way I operate naturally without having to give a thought to it. So, you know, this way would have been developed either by training or by learned behavior and belief. So that is my thinking of my true self, meaning being able to operate, being able to speak, being able to do whatever it might be without having to even think about it. That's my natural. So in other words, a Jack Spanier bite me and I would snap at it. You know, your natural reaction, your natural way of doing things without having to think about it before doing it. That's just what I would allude to at this time.
All right, thank you for that. Really appreciate you chiming in. All right, so the next question then, to help us to really understand, because if there's a true self, we're saying that there's a false self. So what is the false self? Let's answer that as well. What is the false self? Let's go back in the same order. Robert, let me start with you. What is the false self? And we'll work our way through everybody's perspective on that.
Well, you say false?
Yeah, what is the false self? What do you consider? Because it's your perspective. Remember, each person's opinion or point of view. So what do you consider the false self to be?
A false step would be something that I've gotten my true self into. You know, I start out being a true self, but then some comes along to make that where you can deviate from that, and it'll be a false step that you make.
Okay. All right. So deviating from what is the true self is the false self. All right. Thank you for that perspective. Cindy, do you want to jump in as well? Go ahead.
Yeah, the false self now will be the opposite of the true self. That's someone who you pretend to be that you're not, you know? That's for me.
Pretending to be someone that you're not. All right. Okay. Thank you for that, Cindy. Really appreciate that. And Annette, what do you consider?
Well, I was going to say the same thing that Cindy said. Pretending to be who you're not. That's the false self. Pretending to be what you're not.
All right, Mark. Thank you, Annette. Pretending to be what you're not. You're in alignment with Cindy. Mark.
Right. Yeah. So one what I would allude to is me reacting or treating with situations, for example, in not the natural way that I would, but because somebody is looking on, or because Jane is wearing her shoes to go down the road. So, you know, my slippers looking bad. So because Jane wearing her shoes, even though I want to wear slippers, then I wear a shoe too. I don't know if that is down to earth enough and people could understand where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so thank you for that, Mark. So here's the question and the depth of the question. Robert pointed to something really great at the beginning, and everybody has contributed something really wonderful to helping us to frame and understand the difference between the true self and the false self. And when I'm asking a question, I'm asking it at a deep level. You know, what is the true self? What is true? And when I speak about true, I'm talking about that aspect of ourselves, which is changeless, that aspect of ourselves. When something is true, it means that it's always this, it's constant. When something is true, it is genuine. When something is true, it's not like true today and not true tomorrow. If something is true today, then it has to be true next year. If it was true today, it has to be true 5 years ago. If it was true, it has to be true before, at the point where we came to the planet. When we leave the planet, that self has to be true throughout. Are you in agreement? Put a 1 in the chat, or you could unmute and tell me yes. If their true self changes, then it's not true, because it can't be one way today and another way tomorrow if it's the true self. The true self has to be the same throughout our lifetime. It can't be this way this week, this way next week, because that's something that changes. It's like if I was to say, is, you know, what's true? What is 1 + 1 2? Is that true? Please unmute and tell me somebody. Let's have a conversation about trying to find out what is true and what is not true. Is 1
Yes.
+ 1?
Yes.
Yes.
As far as we alone.
Right.
Yes, Makaila.
1 + 1
One
is
is
always
1 is 2. Yes.
all right. Was it 2 100 years ago?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Will it be 2? Will 1 + 1 be 2 200 years from now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So what is true has to be constant. It can't be true in one version one day and then another version another day. So, you know, when Cindy says that, you know, when we change the way we are and we're behaving a way that we're truly not, then we're out of alignment with the true self. You know, when we're behaving in a particular way that's not consistent. And when we look at what Robert spoke to about the true self, if we try to have an idea of what that could be, or we try to define what the true self could be, and then we look at the true self and we give the true self certain qualities. What qualities? Somebody unmute and tell me, what qualities do you believe your true self should really have? What are some of the qualities that our true self should really always?
Honesty.
Hey, I like that lady over there.
Yes,
I love that, right? Honesty, right? Go ahead. Go ahead. Honesty. I love it. Give me another quality.
Consistency.
Consistency, right? The true self, you'd want the true self to be consistent. Anyone else?
I'll see you tonight.
Anyone else wants to go ahead, unmute? And remember, when you unmute, put yourself back on mute when you finish speaking. Okay, so we heard honesty, we heard consistency. Mark, you want to say something? What qualities would you want your true self to demonstrate? Well, go ahead, Annette. Go ahead, Robert. What qualities do you believe the true self should show as the true? How would we know that that person is living from their true self? What type of qualities do you believe that true self would demonstrate? Because all of us have a true self. Robert, go ahead.
To be real.
Love.
To be real.
To be loved.
real.
I heard Michaela say to be loved, to be real, right? To be real, meaning being authentic, not being one way today and being another way tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So being loving, being honest, being consistent. What other qualities should the true self demonstrate? Annette,
Good qualities.
what? Yeah, what? Go ahead again, Annette. I didn't hear that.
Good qualities.
God qualities. Thank you for
Fearless.
that. That's one way to summarize those qualities. So our true self should show our God qualities. That means that if we're not showing God qualities in our behavior, by default, it means that we're living from a false self. Is that fair to say that? if we're demonstrating anger, bitterness, competition, in an immature sense, rivalry, jealousy, envy, malice, anything, any word like that, dishonesty, being unloving, then we're living from a false sense of self. We're not living from the true sense of self. Is it fair to say that if we're demonstrating those words that I just shared, it means that we're living out of alignment with our true self? We're not living from the true nature of ourselves. So in terms of identifying what the true self is and starting to know that self and live from that true self, is to really start to examine our own behavior, starting to examine, are we being, as Michaela said, are we being honest? And honesty is 100%. It's either you're honest or you're not. It doesn't have any, the word white lie is a lie. And if you put white in front of the lie, it doesn't make it less of a lie. A black lie or a white lie is still a lie. So we have to, right? So we have to be mature to where we realize that honesty is 100%. It's not shaded. It's not gray. So as we're maturing and becoming more aware of the true self, the idea here is to identify what it is. And by identifying what it is, we could start to live from the true self rather than living from a false sense of self. What this is to help us to do is to come into alignment with our true nature, the true nature of our being. And the true nature of our being, as Annette shared, it's the God qualities in us. That's the true nature of our being. And then we have demonstrated some other qualities that are not, I wouldn't call those qualities. We have demonstrated behaviors that come from a false sense of self. And that false sense of self is not in alignment with the truth of ourself. The truth of ourself is a constant being that's loving all the time, that's honest all the time, that's consistent, that's persistent. That is all of the qualities that you shared in our conversation so far are God qualities. So the thing is that the true self in us, as I think Robert said it at the beginning, is the God self in us. That's the true self. So we got lost along the way in identifying ourselves with behaviors and with aspects that are not the God self. And that's what we could call the false self. So the false self, let's start from the beginning of this. Let's go back to the very beginning of entering this planet, right? Because all of us came into it's fair to say that all of us have a true self inside. Is it fair to say that? Put a 1 in the chat or say yes. Is it fair to say that all of us inside have a true self? Is it fair to say that? All right, can we all agree on that? Say yes if we can, right? I'm making this class as simple as we possibly could make it, all right? Say yes if we believe that all of us have inside of us a true self.
Yes.
Yes, Robert agrees. Anyone else? Henrietta agrees, right? So we all have a true self within us. Now, what we have to then do is to go through a process of removing the stuff that are not the true self, so that the true self can emerge. And we can demonstrate the qualities of the true self. We can demonstrate the love, the peace, the joy, the honesty that Michaela spoke about, the love. That is the nature of the true self. So where did we pick up this false self from? Because we have to understand where that's coming from so that we can get back to the true self and live from the true self, as opposed to the false self, which has a tendency to take over the show, so to speak, right? So let's understand then what really is a false sense of identity versus the true identity. Now, when we spoke about the true identity, we mentioned qualities like love, honesty. Then we're noticing that these are qualities that come from the God nature of the true self, which is within us, which is spirit, which is invisible, which is not physical. We can't see it with the eyes. We can't hear it with these physical ears. Now, the false self, though, that is a self that, in a way, we made up that version of ourselves. Let me ask us this, right? Who gave you your name? The name that you have? We have names. Who gave you the name that you have right now? Who gave you that name? You popped out of the womb, okay, somebody's womb.
My mommy.
Your mommy gave you Michaela. All right. Okay, and who else? Who gave you your name, right? For me, it was my dad that gave me my name, right? In fact, it was the story is that it was my uncle, which is related to my dad, that gave me the name. Right? But anyone else, right? Who gave you the name that you currently use? So in other words, the name that we're walking around with on the planet, your dad gene, right? So the name that we're walking around with on the planet was given to us by somebody. So when somebody says, so who are you? What's the general thing that people say when you ask them, who are they? Your mother Collins. What's the general thing that people will tell you when you say you meet somebody? So tell me, who are you? What do people generally tell us who they are? Unmute somebody and tell me, what do people generally say when they ask, who are you? What do they generally answer? Annette?
With their
Or
name,
Robert? Go ahead, Robert.
they generally answer with their name.
With the name that their parents gave them, right?
Uh-huh.
So, and some people go further to say, what else do they add to the name? What
Meaning.
Meaning?
Some say I'm a
Okay,
child of God.
So most people generally don't go there as the first thing that they will say who they are. What do generally, you meet somebody on the street, you meet them at what do they generally say they are?
I'm Annette.
What
And
what they do?
Right, Robert. Right, Robert. Right, Robert. Do you notice that a lot of people, you'll ask them who they are? They say, I'm a lawyer. Has anybody ever met anybody who told you that you ask them, so who are you? I'm a lawyer. I
Yes.
have a law. Right, Annette, right? Have you met anybody? You say, so who are you? I'm an engineer.
I'm a daughter of Mark and Marlene Winslow.
You're the daughter. So Michaela is saying that she's the daughter of Mark and Marlene Wilson. So she's identifying herself as the daughter of her parents. She's not saying I am a child of the Creator. That's not what she sees as her identity. She's seeing herself as the daughter of Marlene and Mark. But really, Michaela came through Marlene and Mark, not from Marlene and Mark. The biology that makes up Michaela's body came from Marlene and Mark. But the spirit of life inside of Michaela, where did that come from, guys? Where did the love come from? The peace come from? The joy?
From God.
Man, I'm loving this lady on this call, right? I hope you guys are having as much of a great time as I am having with this conversation, and the how beautiful this is unfolding, and it's blessing me to hear that, because we have a young one in the middle that's just identifying those qualities and recognizing the conversation and being able to see that our biological parents are our biological parents, but our Creator is our true parent. All right. All right. Thank you for that, Michaela. So she came through them, and the qualities. Now, here's the thing. When people now start to say, I am a lawyer, I am a doctor, I am an engineer. So what they've done is that they've taken their divine identity and localized it to a profession. Now, what happens if the person now loses that profession? What generally happens when somebody loses their job? What generally happens to that person? Unmute and tell me, somebody. What type of feeling do they generally have?
Identity.
You say your name.
Go ahead. When they lose their job, what happens to them? How do they normally behave?
You say who you are, your name now. Comes back to your name. I'm John, I'm Jane.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you for that. But what I'm asking us is this. So somebody has given themselves, you ask them who they are, they say, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a mechanic. So what they've done is that they've said, I am, and they've moved their I am from the center of who they are to something, right? They've said, I am this, I am that, I am doctor, I'm lawyer, I'm engineer. But generally, what happens to somebody when they've now identified themselves as this job, as this title, and let's say they're working in a hospital and the hospital fired them and now they've lost their job and they do not have a job, or they're working for a firm as an engineer, they lost their job, they don't have an income, they're working as a lawyer, the law firm, dismissed them for whatever reason. What happens to them when they get dismissed? How do they feel? Somebody tell me, what type of feelings and emotions are they going through when they've lost their income?
A level of hopelessness, depending on how you look at it. It could be turning off a new leaf. It all depends on, from what standpoint you're taking it from. It could be hopeless, or it could be just a new beginning. And people tend to lose, or if I should say, return to their initial identity. So if you're no longer a doctor, no longer a lawyer, you become the person that you normally introduce yourself as. There's no handle to your name. So you come back to your, if I could say, your true self without the title attached.
I see. Thank you. Anyone else wants to say, how does somebody feel during that moment? Is, Marlene said either hopelessness or turning a new leaf. Somebody else wants to jump in and share?
Sad.
You feel like a nobody.
Feel like a nobody. Feel like a nobody now. So thank you for that. Because what happens is that they feel like a nobody because their identity was the role. You see, you can't lose the I am. The I am is always there. But what happens is that we've never been taught to identify ourselves as the love, as peace, as joy. We have not been taught that those qualities are literally the essence and the nature of ourself. So the true self, which is the love, the joy, the peace, the ideas, the creativity, the genius, the ability to do stuff, that's the true nature of our being. But we have been identifying ourselves with the roles that we play in our society. So whenever we go through changes in these roles, then we experience a sense of loss, we experience a sense of depression, we experience a sense of feeling that we're nobody, as Robert just shared. So let's just look at the experience of, the Michaela saying, okay, so I am Michaela, the daughter of Mark and Marley. Now that is an identity that she has taken on to herself. But before the daughter is the word I am. So if we realize that the I am is the real identity, as we come to realize this and we start to live from the I am, then the I am can be I am the son of Harry and Olive Benjamin, okay? And and my biological mother is no longer here. So does that mean that a part of me is lost? So what has happened is that we localized our sense of self to the experiences that we're having. So having a biological mother and father is just for 70 or 80 years while I'm here on the planet. They'll eternally be my biological parents that brought me through, that I came through to be here. But those are temporary. So if my sense of self is based on I am Harry, then that is temporary, because how long am I going to be Harry on the planet for? About 70 or 80 years. So or 90 or 100 or 120. I don't know how many years I'm going to be here, but whatever that is, it's still temporary. And it's not the 1 + 1 = 2, which is eternal. So when we realize the eternal nature of our true self, then it eliminates the sense of worry, it eliminates the sense of anxiety, it eliminates concern about the changes that are happening on the temporal surface side. Because I'm a lawyer, is temporary. I'm a doctor, is temporary. I came out of university, I worked for a doctor maybe 2 or 3 years, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since. So am I a doctor? That's just something I do. I can't even remember how to write some of those prescriptions. So the thing about it is that we have been localizing our sense of self to our roles that we're playing on the earth. And we're not leaving ourselves liquid and fluid to be able to do different roles and do different things, because we've been picking up these false sense of identity in being somebody that we're not, because none of us are these roles. These are just roles that we're playing. All of us are the true qualities that we spoke about, that individuals just identified, you know, and Michaela did it so wonderfully well, right? So the I am is what we need to start to remember and start to re-identify ourselves with. Because when we say I am Robert, I am Annette, I am, these are nice ways to identify one another, but ultimately the I am is the common thread throughout all of us. And that's where our unity is. That's where our oneness is. And then when we start to look for those God qualities that Annette spoke about, and we start to say, okay, the God qualities are the real qualities that I need to start to live from. I need to start to be loving. I need to start to be kind. I need to start to be gentle. So the question then comes, how can we move away from these false sense of identities to the true sense of identity? How can we start to literally, you know, in a sense, not throw them away, but not identify ourselves with them, and then come to know the true sense of identity, those qualities. So let me start with you, Robert, all right? How can we identify those qualities? You know, go ahead, Robert, and tell me, how can we identify those qualities? You want me to start with you, Robert? You're muted, just in case. You're trying to come off mute. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first you would identify the position that you're in, and sometimes you've heard this to where people say, "Hey, I gotta go back. I gotta be myself. I gotta be myself." Sometimes you hear that statement out there, and that's a true statement. Yeah, you do have to be yourself, and you hear that a lot. You know, I'm gonna go back to doing this. I'm gonna go back to doing that. I'm gonna go back to being my true self, who I am, and what I do, and the way that I think. I should be thinking positive on everything. So I'm gonna just go back to doing what I know that's in me, and you know, so I can get myself together again. You know, just like that. I don't know.
All right, that's a thought. Thank you for sharing. All right, jump to you, Annette. What can you do to move away from the identity with I'm Annette, a mother of? Because sometimes we identify ourselves as the mother of our children, and that's one of our identities, but that's a lesser identity. As we have had a conversation, that's not the true self, because that's going to change as time goes on. Those changes are inevitable. That's just a part of how this unfolds, right? So let's go back to Annette. Go ahead, Annette. What can we do to become aware of the true self, right? As opposed to the false sense of self, which are the lesser things that we do, whether we are being a child of our parents, or we're being parents to others, or we're actually playing roles of, you know, being doctors, lawyers, engineers, contributors to the society, and playing different roles there. What can we do to become aware of the true nature, which are the God qualities that you mentioned? Annette, I'm listening. All right, let me jump past Annette. Michaela.
I didn't think about anything though.
You haven't thought about what you could do yet. All right. But all right, that's wonderful. And thank you for your honesty. All right, let's go to Cindy.
Look
Cindy,
in
drop
the
off.
mirror.
All right, I think Mr. Cindy's connection went out. Go ahead, Michaela. Go ahead. What can we do to become aware of those God
Look
qualities?
in the mirror.
Look in the mirror. All right, that's a good place to start. Man in the mirror, woman in the mirror. Thank you. All right, go ahead. I know Jane, we're talking about what is the true self versus what is the false self. I'm not sure if I know you came on a little late, but do you have any ideas on what we can do to become aware of the true self, as opposed to being identified with these lesser identities or the false sense of self? All right, let's go to Henrietta, or Ryan Collins Scholar, and then all right, let's go to Mark. I know Mark, your connection is giving you some trouble. Well, go ahead, Mark. You can unmute if you can. All right, let's go to Scholar. Scholar, what can we do to start to identify those qualities that we spoke about as the true self? I know you sometimes, Scholar, can't talk because you may be in a place of work, But if go ahead, Scholar.
Dr. B, I can't talk much because I'm at work and the family is here.
All right, I understand. All right. So Scholar cannot speak right now, but Collins, if you can, Ryan, if you can, and Henrietta, if you can, and Jane, if you can. If not, then we'll keep rolling. Go ahead, Jane.
I'm driving on the highway.
All right, that's cool. All right, Henrietta. Ryan, jump right in.
Okay, we can identify ourselves by our gifts and talents that we have given from God.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you very much. Those gifts and talents, once you become aware of them, we start to identify what the true nature is. Go ahead. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. Those are really great. Go ahead, Mark.
Also by your wisdom.
Okay, by your wisdom. All right, by the wisdom that's starting to flow. Whenever wisdom starts to flow through you, you know that you're starting to operate from the true self. Now, the thing is that because we've been conditioned to look at ourselves as something tangible, right? So we tend to want to look at ourselves as our physical body. That's one way we try to feel a sense of self, because we have a body. We have something that we can touch, and we can feel it. Then we have a sense of, this is my home, this is who I am, right? And that's one of the challenges that we run into, because we are not only a body. We are a spirit, which is invisible, a soul, which is invisible, which is most of us. And then we have a body to move around on the planet, and the body is temporary. And because the body is not a 1 + 1 = 2, which is eternal, because the body is always changing throughout the course of time, then that's not the true self, because we have agreed that what is true has to be changeless. And the aspect of ourselves that's changeless is our spirit and our soul, not the body and not the physical things that are happening around us. These roles that we play are all changing roles. So those are temporary. So there's no value in holding on to what changes, because once you try to hold on to what changes, you're going to feel anxious because it's changing. And you cannot have any sense of stability with what changes. We can only have a sense of stability with what never changes. So becoming aware of our true self has great value, and how we do this is important. So we spoke about some of the things that can help us to identify what the true self is. But I also want to hear from those, what practices do you believe you can employ that will help you to become aware of your true self? All right. What practices can you do that will help you in the process of being here on this planet to become aware of the true nature of ourselves, so that we can live from that space, as opposed to living from these lower level identities that we tend to focus so heavily on, that do not allow for the true self to be evident in them. Go ahead, Robert. Let me start with you again. What practices are you aware of that we could do that would help us to become aware of these God qualities? All right, Robert's going to jump in. Nope. All right, let's jump to Annette. Before Annette didn't have any contribution there. Mark, I know Mark, you want to go ahead and say say what practices could we employ that will help us to become aware of the true self?
First of all, in my opinion, the basic, hey Mark, the basic foundation is that we need to start to connect by probably the use of meditation, I would say. That is basic, so that we could find ourselves and we could find, you know what I mean, God in us and connect. I think that is number one.
Thank you for that. Anybody else wants to say what things that could we do now that's going to help us to become aware of the true self? What could we do? What practices?
If I may,
go ahead, Marlene.
Introspection and studying God's word and really meditating on it can help us to really see our true self, see how far we have fallen away from the ideology of what God wants us to be. So I think that in it, if I could borrow what Michaela said, is God's word is the mirror in which we could really look at ourselves. We could use that as a benchmark to, to measure how far or how close we are from the great creator, what he intended for us, the true self.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Thank you very much for that. So great contributions. Anybody else wants to say something what practice could we employ that would help us to become aware of the true self? Give us a practice that we could employ that would help us to become aware of the true self. All right, so we heard meditation, we heard introspection, finding your comfort in solitude and meditating. Thank you, Henrietta. Right? So there are 7 practices, right, that have been shown to help. And I want somebody to type them in the chat for me so that individuals could take these notes home. All right, there's 7 things that I teach on to help us to become aware of the true nature of ourselves. Because when you become aware of the true nature of yourself, you become more peaceful inside. You'll be having things going on in your life, and things are changing. Relationships are changing, your finances are going through changes, the world is going through changes, the economy is going through ups and downs, and all of these things are happening around you, but you'll be in a deep sense of peace, even though all of these things are going on around you, because you're not identifying yourself with the changing things in your life. So when you're not identified, when you're disidentified and you brought your identity back to the true nature of yourself, when these changes happen, they do not affect you the way they would affect you if you thought you were a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, and you lost the job. And as Robert said, when you lose that, you feel like a nobody, because what made you feel like a somebody is the job. So once you lose the job, you feel like a nobody because your identity was your job. So once we start to come back to our true nature, when these changes happen, you're not thrown under the bus. You're not run over like, something just knocked you flat on your back. You'll be able to still, okay, so that change happened. Now, how can I go about using that change to open up another street, another avenue, and for something more beautiful and amazing to unfold, because that block that was maybe in my way as a block has now been removed, and now I can go to another level. So these practices, the peace, the joy, somebody on the Zoom, a Super Saturday yesterday, right? And I was doing a part of the training, and somebody said, they call me Dr. Happy Benjamin, right? Dr. Happy Benjamin, because my joy, ladies and gentlemen, is not based anymore on my relationship with my spouse or children, the income that I'm generating, what's going on in the community and the world at large. My joy is not connected to those things anymore. There was a phase in my life when it was. There's a time when the money was funny, I was depressed because I was identifying myself as my business. And there's a time when, whenever we made a lot of money, I was very excited. And when we were losing money, I was very unhappy because my joy was connected to the presence of money or absence of it. So when you're rolling back from that and you've now identified yourself with your true self, you have a joy that's unaffected by these changes. And then you have a strength to go and make the changes necessary to have the goals and dreams that you want to accomplish. All right, so the 7 practices that we should use to become aware of the true self, where the peace, the joy, the strength, the love, the consistency, the persistence, the honesty, right, Marlene, realignment, right? All right, thank you very much, Prince Elder Faratade over there in Nigeria, my friend. Thank you for showing up. So we need to go in to, as Mark had mentioned, to start to identify that true self. So there's 7 practices, because we have to be practical about this. We can't be just talking about it. We have to be practical about it. So here are the practices that we should employ, right? Here are the practices that we should employ. The practices that we should employ, I'm going to give you 7 of them, right? 7 practices that we must engage in. Thank you, Marlene, for typing that in the chat. And I'm going to count them 7 to 1. All right, 7 to 1. All right, number 7 is fellowship. Somebody type fellowship in the chat. All right, and if you, Marlene, if you're taking the notes for us, number 7 is fellowship. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7 is fellowship. So fellowship, you have to be mindful that the people that you surround yourself with are going to, in a sense, determine to a great extent how you are going to think, how you're going to end up feeling. So it's really important to ensure that you fellowship around people that are seeking to want to know about their true self, are seeking to want to be in a high space of joy and peace and be kind and gentle. You know, not people who are constantly upset and angry and, in a low space constantly and miserable and complaining and blaming and not taking responsibility for their lives. So you have to be careful that you're not fellowshipping with people who are living that way. So you choose who you fellowship with. That's number 7. Number 6 is selfless service. Number 6 is selfless service. So we have to be someone who is willing to do something in the society that's not for gain. So you're doing something not because you're getting something in return. It could be something as simple as, you're helping somebody who can't feed themselves to feed themselves. All right, that's selfless service. It could be, going next door and you know that somebody, is having a challenging time and you cook food and you cook a little extra and you give it to that individual. That's selfless service. So we have to do something, or you may take it beyond that, and you're someone who has set a goal to go into the society and feed large groups of people. One of the things I did while I was in Lagos is that I led a group of us to go and give away 5,000 meals in Nigeria, right? We did that by going out into the streets. We bought the food with our own money and bought bottles of water and cooked food. And we made, the people put them in little packets. And we went out into the street where there are people who are homeless, who are on the streets, and we gave them food and we gave them water to drink, all right, along with the food. And it was an excruciating experience to see how people, wanted to grab the food, but also it was very liberating at the same time, to really do that, because, in the process of that, there was this heightened sense of joy and a heightened sense of peace that I felt in the process of giving those meals away, right? So that's the other side to selfless service. You want to do something that's not related to gain. Now, number 5, life visioning. Vision with an ing, life visioning. Now, number 5 is where you're now going to, in your retrospection, in your introspection, in your times of meditation, you're going to start to ask your creator, what is your idea as my life? What it is that I'm here to do, creator? How is my life to be? How am I to live? What are the things that I'm here to do? You start to live a life of purpose. Life visioning is actually one of the most powerful practices, because what it does is that it aligns you with your gifts, your talents that Ryan spoke about. So you're living from a place of gifts, talents, and capacities, and you're not living from a place of what the world says you should be and what the world says you should do, right? You're living from that deep inner space of knowing your creator. This is what your creator wants of you. This is what your creator is seeking to do by means of you, right? Thank you, life visioning, right? What's your purpose? What is mine to do? What are my gifts? What are my talents? So we're not living from the standpoint of what the world says. I'm an engineer, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a this, I'm a that. These are things that are great and they contribute to our society, but they're quite limiting and quite restricting, right? So we want to mature from that so that we're living from a higher space, right? What's your purpose? So number 4, high-minded conversations. Number 4, high-minded conversations. That's what we're having today, right? We're having a high-minded conversation. We're not on here just talking about business or, we need to do this to be able to generate money for our families, or we need to build our teams in extreme. And those things are wonderful. But we also need to have these conversations that allow for us to eliminate some of the obscuration and obstructions that are interfering with us. And I believe so far we've been having a beautiful conversation that's helping us to eliminate some of the stuff that's interfering with us being able to release our gifts and our talents and our capacities. That's number 4. All right. So we do this oftentimes, and some of you know we're into Think and Grow Rich. Tomorrow we do chapter number 2, and Wednesday we do chapter number 3, and Friday 4. And we're going to continue to develop ourselves. All right. Number 3, spiritual study. Number 3, spiritual study. Spiritual study. Very, very important. What books are you reading? You know, do you have a list of books that you're working your way through? Because by reading and studying these different books, what it does is that it helps to bring your awareness of your true self. And we have to study books that move us in that direction. But you will not find those books if you are not having an interest in wanting to know your true self. If you're not having an interest in wanting to know your true identity, then you're not going to be looking, those books are not going to find you. If you have a genuine interest in that, you start finding a certain book just drops off your shelf in front of you. I remember there's a book that I've studied, and I was reading it and I couldn't find it for a while. I couldn't find the book. And one day, Abraham, right, when he was a baby, he just walked up to me and gave it to me. And I was looking for it for weeks. And Abraham just walked up to me and gave me the book. It's like, man, it was such a blessing to me to see that happen. And that same book, one day I'll tell you the name of the book, right? Because that's my number 1 book. That same book, guys, that same book, right? I was on a flight and going to a convention for Organa Gold, and I was flying from Florida to Las Vegas. All right, so I was reading the book on the flight and studying the book on the flight, and I fell asleep. And got up off the plane, didn't realize I didn't have the book with me. And when I was outside of the plane, I realized, oh, I didn't have the book. And I went and I asked the air hostess, about it, and they checked the plane, and the book wasn't there. I was like, man, what happened here? They cleaned it out and threw it away already or whatever, right? And when I was in the line at the hotel checking in, I was checking in, right? Checking in. A lady was standing beside me. I said, well, you know what? I was sitting on the flight and the air hostess gave me this book because you were sitting there. And I didn't even realize you were going to the same convention. Because she said she came out of the flight trying to find me and she couldn't find me. So that to me is just so powerful. So when you're interested in knowing your true self, the information necessary for it, it will find you. And it was that to me just made me dive into the book even more, study it even more, because I really knew that I really needed to learn more about the true nature of being. And ladies and gentlemen, that's spiritual study, right? Number two, affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer. Affirm, ATIVE, affirmative, which means that we're praying in a way that is aligned with our true self. So you're praying things like, I am love, I am joy, I am peace, I'm wisdom, I'm genius, I'm abundance. You have a set of affirmations that you could repeat every day to remind yourself about the true nature of our being, because we've been identifying ourselves with these lesser ways of living. So by coming back to the true nature, we're reminding ourselves, we're bringing ourselves back to the true nature of ourselves. And to do that, we need, ladies and gentlemen, to get that affirmation list. Some of us have a long list that we repeat every morning, but some of us have gotten to the point where your prayer are words that lift up, and you do not speak again in words that tear down anything or anyone. You're always speaking up in uplifting ways. And then number one is meditation that Mark spoke about, silent meditation. And if you learn to practice number one, and you practice number one consistently, what will happen is that number one will be more than all the other 6 combined. If you do number one, right? If you take that time to be still, to be quiet, to be silent, to introspect, to reflect, and also to listen and to become aware of the true nature of yourself, it will start to speak to you. The love will start to birth itself. The joy will start to bubble up. The peace will start to rise up. You're literally going to start to feel joyful, even during a difficult situation. You're going to be wondering, how come I feel so good? And that situation is so-called a bad situation. And you're not down into the dumps of it. You're not dragged down into it. And as I promised you, we're going to have a conversation on here soon with somebody that I've mentored for years, Monica. And, you guys line up for that conversation. You're going to be like, wow, because this is someone that I helped to become aware of our true self and the gifts and the talents and the capacities that are birthed themselves right now. You guys are going to be like, wow, 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 wow. This stuff is awesome. And everybody here at different phases and stages, we're all going to become aware of our true nature. It's a stage. You have to have an interest. The reason why you guys are here in this conversation today is because you have an interest. If you didn't have an interest in it, you would not be on here. You would not have been able to participate. You would not even have known about it. So you have an interest in this while you're listening and while you're participating. And that interest is giving you the information that's going to help you along the journey. Now, what each of us have to now do is to go through those practices. We have to engage in those practices. We have to start to do a check mark, and ensure that we're really doing that. And as you start to get engaged in doing them, then you're going to start to become aware of your true nature, and those qualities of your true nature will start to birth themselves. They'll start to blossom and bloom in your life and be beautiful. All right. So really appreciate you guys for showing up, man. Any comments, any questions about this topic that we discussed today? I really feel nourished by it. All right. Thank you very much for participating. I got a lot from you all. So thank you very, very, very much. Anyone wants to go ahead and unmute and say something, ask a question, or just add something to what we discussed? Anyone?
Good morning, Dr. Harry. I'm sorry I got in late and I missed a lot. So I don't know. I've enjoyed whatever little I've got from there. I wish I could know what the main topic we were talking about. Is it about ourselves or what?
All right, so James, it's about understanding the true self versus the false self. But it's recorded. I'm going to post the recording here in another half an hour or so, and it's uploaded. And I'll send it out in the chat so you can go ahead and watch it again or watch the first part so you can get a full understanding.
That will be very nice, and I really appreciate you. I got late from work, and when I was camping in, I have to drive on the highway for like 35 minutes. I'm still driving. But I'm on the service road right now. Thank you, Dr. Harry, for everything you are doing for us. I really appreciate you. You have a wonderful day.
You too, Jane. I appreciate you too. Looking forward to seeing you in North Carolina on the 5th.
Thank you. I will.
Dr. Benjamin, I would like to say thank you very much. I honestly was not going to be here this morning, but I was summoned to the meeting. And I did sincerely appreciate what you shared, those gems, those nuggets. I really appreciate it. And I hope that it is equally enlightening to each and every one of us here. Thank you, and do have a wonderful week, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlene. Really appreciate your kind words. And, the spirit of our Creator has a way to nudge us to where we need to be. I'd find somebody to pull us, Makala. Thank you so much. All right. Anyone else wants to say something? All right. All right. So you know how we roll. Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Always enjoy everything. And it always brings out everything that we do in life it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual. And I really appreciate how you come up with those subjects that it has to include every time you teach. It has to also include spiritual things and spiritual blessings, how God looks at things, how we should walk, how we should do everything. You always include it, in all your teachings, and I really appreciate that, because you have to find God in it somewhere. Everything we do, God is in it, and He's involved, and He's in our lives the same way. Everything we do, God is involved in the thing, and how we carry ourselves, how we react, how we do everything. It's all about our Creator. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. God is in the details. We look. All right, thank you, Robert. All right, guys. You know how we roll, right? You know, the idea of saying "I bless you" and your life is magnificent. It's really important to see others as being magnificent, and it helps us to raise ourselves, right? And a lot of us are not used to seeing ourselves as magnificent. We generally do not describe ourselves as magnificent. And it's important to look for the higher nature in others, because when we see their lower nature, when we see their misbehavior and we see their undeveloped areas, it reinforces those undeveloped areas in us. So when somebody does something hurtful to you, what it is it's a prayer request. If you're strong enough, when somebody hurts you, it's a way for them to say, pray for me. That's why they hurt you, because they need prayer. But they need the prayer of lifting them up, not prayer of, hey, you know what? I return to you what you give to me. That's not a good prayer. You do not want to do that, because you're returning that to you. So, you know, you want to always be emanating and releasing. Is hard. You know, being loving and being kind and gentle in this world is hard, because there's so much coming at us. There's so much coming at us. It's very difficult. So, but with practice and going through those 7 practices, believe you me, you'll elevate your vibration and you'll be able to be in that high vibe, right? And we're going to continue to reaffirm this and have these conversations so that we can raise our vibration and we can live from a high frequency. Because when we're living from a high vibe, when we're living from love and peace and joy and wisdom and genius and creativity and abundance, you know, then our life on the outside is going to start to picture this. But we have to stay, the frequency has to stay up, because it is the frequency that shows up on the outside as that line. And that's the hard part, to stay high, right? You know, we can't force ourselves to do it. We have to practice our way into that space, all right? So as you know, we roll. I bless you and your life is magnificent. Unmute, say it with your own mouth. Find 5 names on the list, at least 5. You want to bless everybody, that's fine. But find 5 names and say, Robert, I bless you and your life is magnificent. Let's all do it at the same time. And I bless you and your life is magnificent. Marlene and Michaela.
I bless you and your life.
I bless you, your life is magnificent.
I bless you and your life.
I bless you, your life is magnificent.
I bless you and
Painful,
your
I
life
bless
is
you and your life is
magnificent.
magnificent.
I bless you and your
Robert, I
life is
bless you and your life is
Ryan,
magnificent.
I bless you and your life is
Bruce, I
magnificent.
bless you, your
Mama
life is
Gladys,
Annette, and your life
I
is
bless you and your life is
Paula, I
And your
bless you,
life
your
is
life
And your
magnificent.
life is
I
magnificent.
bless you, Makayla.
Bless you,
And
Dr.
your life
Harvey, and
is
your life is
magnificent.
magnificent.
Change it.
Bless everyone and their lives are magnificent.
I bless you, Ryan, and your life is magnificent. I bless you, Harry, and your life is magnificent.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen and amen.
Amen. Goodbye.
All
Bless
right,
them.
guys.